Gravity Falls doesn't feel nostalgic because of when you watched it. It feels nostalgic because of how it quietly changes the way you look at the world. It slows everything down. It makes space for quiet moments. And it reminds you that not everything meaningful needs to be explained or solved. Right away, watching it feels like stepping into a mindset most of us didn't realize we were leaving behind. A time when curiosity mattered more than certainty. When wandering was more important than arriving. When the world felt big. Not because it was overwhelming, but because it was still unexplored. As we grow older, we get better at understanding things. But in that process, we often lose something else. We stop expecting mystery. We stop letting ourselves sit with unanswered questions. We stop believing that strange, wonderful things might exist just out of view. Gravity Falls doesn't ask us to return to childhood. It simply reminds us of what childhood felt like. The feeling that the world was full of hidden meaning, and that discovering it was part of the experience. That's why the show lingers long after the episodes end. It doesn't just tell a story. It leaves you with a mood, a quiet sense of longing, a warmth mixed with sadness. Not because something was lost, but because something mattered. And maybe that's what real nostalgia is. Not the desire to go back exactly as things were, but the realization that a moment shaped you, even if you didn't notice it at the time. If you've made it this far, you probably felt that feeling too. And if you enjoy videos that slow things down, look beneath the surface and explore why certain stories stay with us long after we've grown up. This channel is going to be about exactly that. I'll be making more videos like this, exploring animation, storytelling, and the emotions we don't always know how to name, but still recognize when we feel them. So if that sounds like something you'd want to keep coming back to, consider subscribing. And thank you for spending this time here. Sometimes, just taking a moment to remember how the world used to feel is enough. What makes this kind of nostalgia so powerful is that it doesn't rely on specific memories. It relies on patterns. Our brains are incredibly good at recognizing emotional patterns we experienced when we were younger, even if the details are different. A quiet town, a place that feels contained, a sense that the world is small enough to understand, but big enough to explore. Gravity Falls mirrors those patterns almost perfectly. That's why the nostalgia feels personal, even when the setting isn't. It's not reminding you of where you grew up. It's reminding you of how the world felt when you were still discovering it. And once that feeling is triggered, the rest comes naturally. The warmth, the comfort, the quiet sadness that comes with realizing that time has moved on. Another subtle reason Gravity Falls feels nostalgic is its pacing. The show isn't afraid of stillness. There are moments where nothing important happens, no big joke, no major plot twist, no urgent conflict. Those moments matter more than they seem. When we look back on childhood, we don't remember it as a highlight reel. We remember it as long stretches of ordinary time. Walking places with no destination. Sitting around doing nothing in particular. Letting thoughts wander. Gravity Falls recreates that rhythm. It gives scenes room to exist without rushing them toward a payoff. That slowness feels unfamiliar to us as adults. And that's exactly why it feels nostalgic. It reminds us of a time when being present was enough. Interestingly, Gravity Falls often feels more nostalgic when you watch it as an adult. That's because nostalgia is strongest when contrast exists. As kids, we live inside these feelings without noticing them. As adults, we recognize what's missing. Responsibilities replace free time. Certainty replaces curiosity. Efficiency replaces wandering. Gravity Falls doesn't criticize adulthood, but it quietly contrasts it with childhood. Watching the show as an adult highlights how much our relationship with time and wonder has changed. And that awareness adds emotional weight to even the smallest moments.
The nostalgia doesn't come from wanting to relive the past exactly as it was.
It comes from wanting to reconnect with a mindset we didn't realize we were leaving behind. That's why Gravity Falls lingers in people's minds long after the episodes end. It isn't just entertaining. It quietly reminds us of something we've outgrown, without shaming us for it. It lets nostalgia exist without turning it into regret. And instead of asking us to go back, it simply asks us to remember what it felt like to be curious, to let the world be strange, to believe that not everything needed an explanation right away. Gravity Falls does something strange. It makes people feel nostalgic, even if they didn't grow up with the show, even if they watched it for the first time as an adult. That's unusual because nostalgia is usually tied to memory. But Gravity Falls creates nostalgia without memory. It makes you miss summer days you never lived, places you never visited, and a version of childhood that feels familiar but just out of reach. This isn't an accident. Gravity Falls is carefully designed to recreate a feeling, not a time period. And that feeling is something most of us slowly lose as we grow older. The sense that the world is still mysterious, open, and full of possibility. To understand why Gravity Falls feels nostalgic, even without personal memories attached to it, we have to look at how the show treats time, space, and wonder itself. One of the biggest reasons Gravity Falls feels nostalgic is because of how it treats time. The show takes place over a single summer, not a school year, not a lifetime, just one temporary stretch of time that we already know won't last forever. That immediately frames everything as fleeting. When we're kids, summers feel endless. But when we look back, they feel incredibly short. Gravity Falls captures that contradiction perfectly. Episodes feel slow and relaxed, but the overarching story keeps reminding us that the end is coming. This creates a quiet tension beneath even the lighthearted moments. We aren't just watching a story unfold, we're watching time pass. And that awareness mirrors how nostalgia works in real life. Nostalgia isn't just about happiness. It's about realizing something mattered only after it started to slip away. Gravity Falls also feels nostalgic because of its setting. The town is small, isolated, and surrounded by nature. There's a sense that the outside world barely exists. This creates emotional containment. When you're a child, your world is small. Your neighborhood, your school, a few familiar places. Gravity Falls recreates that scale. Nothing feels rushed. Nothing feels crowded. The forests, the roads, the quiet streets, they all feel like spaces meant for wandering, not efficiency. The show doesn't just depict a place. It depicts how places felt when we were younger, slower, bigger, and more meaningful. Even if you never lived in a town like Gravity Falls, your brain recognizes the emotional shape of it. And that recognition is enough to trigger nostalgia.